Technical difficulties? Question mark?
Cavs faithful, what is going on? Welcome out to a Sunday night post-game live stream of the Cavs Encapsulated crew. It's the post-game pulse. Your Cleveland Cavaliers have knocked off the Indiana Pacers. The game is not final yet, but it's looking to be like a 98 to 85 victory. I'm going to get links out. We're going to get the StreamYard link in the description. If people want to call in, we'll bring you in. You can say your 2 cents, and then you could hop on out. But I'm going to start with Logan. What has the bench, Kevin Love, Cedi Osman,
my God,
Rajon Rondo, what have they meant tonight for the Cleveland Cavaliers?
It is a good day to be a Cleveland Cavaliers fan, guys, of course, for other reasons that we'll get into. We've already talked about it on Twitter, of course, and everyone knows what we're talking about. But tonight, in a game where you're once again down Garland, down Markkanen, you're down 2 starters, the players off the bench were ginormous. Kevin Love needs to be in the three-point contest in Cleveland, no questions asked. Cedi Osman, after struggling early, he was due for a couple of triples, made some massive ones there in the third and fourth quarters to really get us going. And I want no more Rajon Rondo slander. This is one of those games where the team is playing bad. They're out of control. Brandon Goodwin did not look very great today. And JB once again trusted his veteran, Rajon Rondo. No, he doesn't do exactly what Ricky Rubio did. No, his statistics don't look as good. But the way that he competes, the way that he constantly runs the floor, goes and gets the ball, even knocked down a triple tonight when everybody was knocking down triples in that fourth quarter, the way he sets up Kevin Love, he obviously fits in with this team. Kevin Love, Cedi Osman deserve a lot of credit for the Cavaliers coming back from down 20 in tonight's game and pulling out really a convincing dub.
Logan is alluding to the, of course, blockbuster breaking news. I don't know if you call it a blockbuster, but I'm excited. I'm hyped up. Caris LeVert in C-Town, literally and figuratively and literally. We already got people in the chat. Spencer, what's going on? Ashton, fourth quarter, though, crazy. Couldn't hit a shot till the fourth quarter. Justin, how was your experience watching this game? You're pretty quiet in the chat, so we've come on here, and we like to hear what you got to say off cuff.
Yeah, been quiet for the past couple games. Listen, obviously this team has been kind of up and down for the past 4 games since the last time we talked, Cavs Encapsulated, but this was a 4-game stretch without Darius Garland, your one singular all-star as of this moment. Jared Allen may have worked himself into replacing hopefully an injured Kevin Durant, but this team's been very up and down, and I think that's how you could describe this game was more down than up until the third and fourth quarters. But I think there's a lot of talk about, and I just don't know that I want to. I've been trying to keep the reason I've been quiet in our group messages. I feel like I want to keep all my thoughts for Cavs Encapsulated in terms of just how we played as a team so far through these 4 games. So I'm a little bit more interested in us talking and hearing from fans about the trade that we made today.
That's a good point. If you get everything out in text like me and Logan tend to do, then you don't have anything to talk about when it comes time to record videos or go live. Thank goodness we have our faithful chatters out there, and if people are starting to trickle in. Talk about dude, I don't know how many times I could say it or just be cliche or be corny or just be Homer, but a gutsy win. I don't know how many games, and this is why I should note everything when we play, how I'm feeling. How I'm feeling is often much more, apparent than what I'm thinking. I'm feeling like we're going to get blown out of the gym tonight. I'm not thinking that's, I'm more optimistic in my thought process than how I actually feel watching the games. It's weird to differentiate. It's weird to think about. But a 25 to 21 point victory in the third quarter, 4-point victory, and then you score 37 in the fourth and hold them to 14. Talking and Grubbing Media, what is going on? We are doing great. We're here to talk Cavs basketball with you guys. We're here to talk Caris LeVert trade. The StreamYard link is in the description. If you want to click on that, join in. You'll come into the queue. We could add you. You don't need your camera. All you have to do is talk. You could come in with your camera, but we want to talk to the fans, meet you where you are. If there's arguments, if there's debates, if there's points that need to be made, get involved. Trust me, it's going to be a great stream. But let's go game performers. Let's start with game balls. Logan, who do you give your game ball to tonight?
Rajon Rondo. And that might be crazy because, you know, at the end of the day, Love had the better stats, made the big shots. Jetty hit the 2 triples to get us going in the fourth quarter. But Rondo, once again, like I said earlier, for anybody just joining us, he played extended minutes tonight. Brandon Goodwin didn't see the floor till the final couple minutes after starting the game. Rondo had to be good. He needed to lead this offense. He needed to show constant energy, and I think he did offensively and defensively. Missed a couple of shots badly. We still wanted to take less threes. I know that, but I think he was in a role tonight where a veteran needs to be good, needs to dig out of this hole, and veterans also know how to handle deficits. You don't need to get it all back, and that's what we talk about. It's what Austin Carr preaches. And I listened to the Pacers broadcast, and they mentioned the same thing. It was 47-36, and they said Cleveland likes these games. If they can hold you under 100 points, their record in those games are pretty good.
Yeah.
And the defense wasn't really the issue. I think the offense had to get going. I thought Rondo did a good job of getting guys in their spots to hit shots. I thought he did a great job of that. Nito Cora to make a few more. I think Rondo found him 3 or 4 times in the corners and just couldn't knock it down. But he really got us. He was the constant person throughout the game. Love and Jetty deserve, you know, game ball as well because they're the ones that made the shots that mattered and counted. But Rondo for 4 quarters, maybe he wasn't perfect, but he definitely was exactly what the Cavaliers needed.
Justin, game ball, Rondo, or do you have somebody else?
Kobe Altman for taking Caris LeVert off the court for this game.
That's a good one.
We did not need to see
Jeff kind of made that in our group message. I thought it was really funny, so I have to give him props for that one. But I don't know. Honestly, probably Jared Allen for me. I really want to get into a lot more of just like, I want to talk more about this 4-game stretch than anything, but in specifics for this game and going back to the last game, I just think that Jared Allen has picked it up and we've seen it. We've always talked about the rebounding part of this game for this team, and he's gone back and gotten 15-plus rebounds in both of these past 2 games. So he's really stepped it up there, and I think that he's going to hopefully continue to do that and continue to pick up the slack.
I'm personally going to go to Kevin Love for a couple reasons. One, he's not afraid to shoot. We saw this play out in the Charlotte game. He was pump faking in the first half. JB got on him a little bit in the locker room, said, "You're Kevin Love. You could shoot the 3 ball." Point number 1. Point number 2, and it's a sad point and it's a great point at the same time. He leads the team in charges by like 11 or 10 charges. He has 14 charges. Okoro has 3. So the elder statesman playing good defensively on the defensive side of the ball. Justin, I appreciate your Kobe Altman shout out because we have our first guest of the night. He's up on the screen with the text, and he is up on the. He's not there.
He's not even there.
Where is he?
Bennett.
There he is.
Cavs' biggest double. Whoa. We got to fix the mic.
We got to let him fix his mic.
We're going to have to let him fix the mic. We'll be involved.
Difficulties.
He's had technical difficulties all day. I was talking to him on Discord earlier. John says, how about them Cavs, And
how about them Cavs, Jonathan?
We got some people in here. Turner's in here. Ashton, Spencer, Talking Grub Media. What's going on? Rip, no mic. Hate to see that. He needs to get a new mic, really is what's going on. He said that I'm gonna try to bring him. I'm gonna try him one more time.
All right.
Bennett.
Can you hear us?
No mic. Look at him.
Is it bad?
It's better now.
Yeah.
No, I'm not gonna waste your time with this.
No,
You're
not working
when
right.
you come in. You might as well.
No, you're good. You're good. Tell us about LeVert quickly.
Okay, Caris LeVert, exactly what we needed for way less than I thought we were gonna have to give up for him. Averaging close to 20 points a game this year, shooting about 33% from deep. I think that'll only increase as he becomes more of a spot-up shooter in this offense. So I think his efficiency, his numbers are going to go up. Has a pretty solid assist-to-turnover ratio. That's something you look for in high usage rate guards, especially for somebody who was in Indiana, where it was kind of more of just, let me get my stats because they're not a great team this year, honestly. But in this offense, I think he fits really well. I think that we still could probably make one more move for somebody. I don't know who
Mhm.
yet. I haven't really thought about it because my mindset was in order to get somebody like a Caris LeVert, you're going to have to give up Sexton and maybe a couple of picks in the Rubio contract. So just being able to get him for the Rubio contract, I don't always give my props to Kobe Altman, but this was a pretty solid deal. I can't lie. Like I'll give him credit where credit's due. Now I would say don't get complacent. We need like
Absolutely.
maybe I don't know what we need right now. I haven't really thought about it too much, but definitely
Maybe a
if
3-point shooter at the guard spot.
Eric Gordon, I mean, how much are you going to have to go up for him? It's going to be a lot of salary, but somebody like Eric Gordon, I think at this point, now that you got Caris, you don't need somebody like a Buddy Hield or a CJ who's going to be stupid high usage rate. I think they just need kind of like a vet that's going to come in, be ready for the playoffs, that can spot up and shoot 35 to 40% from deep and, maybe play some defense too.
Bennett's right about that. You need a productive veteran on this team. You don't just want a veteran that's going to be in the locker room. I think at this point you want to still make a couple of moves, make sure that this guy, when he checks in, is also making the impact that he needs to. But I think a veteran going into that playoff, guys, it could be a different Cavs team that we see, assuming they're going to make it. Fingers crossed. But I think when he gets to the playoffs, it's a whole different animal, as everybody says. And a lot of guys on this Cavalier team will be making their playoff debut or have very minimal playoff experience. So I like the idea that Bennett brings up of bringing in some kind of productive veteran.
So we got Caris LeVert stats up on the board here. You could see, the knock on him is he's not going to be your 3-point shooter usage. 32% is not the end of the world. It's not completely terrible, but Bennett brings up a good point here. Another guy who could just score the basketball, and something we clearly needed in the first half of this game. I saw people saying, can we suit him up for the second quarter after that abysmal first quarter? Earl Waters is saying perfect fit. I'm interested in the fit. If you haven't seen the full details of the trade, I believe here we go. We got Woj covering it. The Cavs are sending a package to the Pacers that includes Ricky Rubio's expiring contract, lottery protected 2022 first round pick, and 2 second-round picks. Sources tell ESPN. I believe we got a second round pick back. Yeah. So Indiana's in total sell mode. You have to be able to dial in, laser focus in on these teams that are selling. Indiana is the best case scenario in the Eastern Conference, in the division. I'm thrilled with what we sent out. I think it's a good start. Bennett brings up the point, don't get complacent. And that was going to be my second question, if he thinks we're done for the trade deadline. But I'm kind of inclined to think we're not, because it's Sunday. If we would have made this move Tuesday or Wednesday, I might have said, all right. But I think that with the reports coming out, Kobe said they're in talks for an extension, or that is to be the hopes that they're in talks to sign him after this season. His $17.5 million contract is expiring at the conclusion of this year. Bennett, we really appreciate you, buddy. Anything else to add?
Just one point to your fit about the chemistry with Caris LeVert. One thing I didn't really think about, but I did realize, is that he was on the Brooklyn Nets team with D'Angelo Russell and Jarrett Allen that went to the playoffs and even though I think that Philly won in 5 games, it was actually a pretty competitive series. And I don't remember specifically how Caris played, but just like him saying he wanted to come and be a productive part of like a contender that we're building towards being a contender, and obviously having somebody he's already been to the playoffs with, and Jarrett Allen is just going to be really good for this team.
Ed Davis is also on those Brooklyn teams.
I saw that too.
It's a good start for chemistry.
It's a good start.
Very good.
But I appreciate you guys. I hope you guys have a good rest of your stream.
Good seeing you, Ben.
Good Take care, buddy.
So I really quickly, I have so much with what Bennett just said about bringing in LeVert. We haven't even, and Jeff, with you obviously bringing up what we gave up for him. Yep. We didn't give up an active player on this roster. Yep. So what does that mean exactly? Well, one point is we're going to have to start figuring out minutes. We're going to have to start figuring out what lineups are going to be active, what guys are going to be losing minutes. That's the biggest thing. Who's going to start losing minutes here? Is it going to be Okoro? Is it going to be Rondo? Is Brandon? Have we seen the last of Brandon Goodwin? That's a very big possibility. What's going to happen with a lot of these guys when Garland comes back too? I mean, it's really interesting to try to get into the minutia of, all right, how does he really help this team, and what does he do as a byproduct of just being brought in for, consequently nothing. We didn't really give up anything that's going to affect us now, other than guys losing playing time.
Especially a 2027 second-round pick. Like, that's Oklahoma City Thunder ripping it right out of their playbook. I mean, they're going to move that piece to try to get Bronny James here, you'd think. I mean, 2027, that's 5 years away. Who even knows about the NBA landscape 5 minutes from now? Turner says 76% free throw shooter. Don't love that. Agreed, but he fits right in with the roster because we suck at free throws. Yep. Imagine LeBron coming to this roster and completely ruining it. Okay, we're going to get that bad vibe out of that.
JP?
Right.
Yeah, that's John.
Nice.
Perhaps it'll be more wide open for our threes. I see talking and grubbing's in our queue. So we're going to have our first official guest. Not that Bennett wasn't an official guest, but not somebody who we just have met through YouTube. So that's going to be should be a good time here. But Mike says perhaps he'll be more wide open for his threes in our system. Yes. Indiana does not move the ball very well. And like, he didn't play tonight. I don't think we played him this year. I think he was hurt the first game we played him. Caris LeVert, that being. So their ball movement is not very good. I think Darius is giving you open looks. Rondo is giving you open looks. And his percentages could go up. You never know.
And Mike, in turn, I mean, his presence on the floor is also going to open up more threes for the Cavaliers in general. I mean, you're going to have to compare. You're going to have to pay attention to both LeVert and Garland. And we haven't even talked about Allen and Mobley down low. I mean, that is definitely why we went out and got this kind of guy. We miss Colin Sexton, for this exact situation. And LeVert is certainly fills that role very well.
Great point. It's going to be interesting to get him into the fold, but we're going to go to Talking and Grubbing Sports. He's been in the chat before. Hello, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. How y'all doing?
What's going on? How's it going? Welcome out to the Cleveland Pulse YouTube channel and the Postgame Pulse. What's going on? How do you feel about this victory, and how do you feel about Caris LeVert?
Man, definitely a great come from behind win. Definitely like the Caris LeVert trade. Kobe, he learned from the best in David Griffin by fleecing him.
Right.
He should definitely be considered executive of the year.
He's going to be up there, him and JB as coach of the year.
Definitely.
But do you think the Cavs are done, or is there another move in the fold? Do you think there should be another move, and will there be?
I think they want to look for another shooter.
Yeah. Yep.
But what would they have to give up is the question.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's the question with all these trades. Justin talks about it a lot, especially for a guy like Hield. And now you have to think about it. I'm glad that you brought that up, Talking and Grubbing, because we just used our contract match. Rubio was our contract match. So a $30 million Buddy Hield finagle looks impossible. I'm not seeing it after that because Rubio is going to be half the deal. So it's either going to be, a blockbuster move. I don't know Eric Gordon's contract off the top of my head. It cannot be, as much as Buddy Hield.
I think it's like 15 mil, if I'm not mistaken. It's pretty high. We
haven't even talked about the disabled player exceptions that we've been granted. I think that a name to watch out for, I've seen it. If you don't follow, I believe Greg Schwartz on Twitter, good follow. He's a Cavs, media guy. Go over there and check him out. His top of the list is Ben McLemore from Portland, I think. He's like $3 or $4 million. He would fit into the Sexton exception. So that's a name to watch out for if we were just to make like a signing, so to say.
Well, Goran Dragic, unless, this Toronto buys him out.
Yeah, we've heard the Dragic name, floated around. There's some other pieces that are out on the market for sure. Talking and Grubbing, we really appreciate you joining us here. Anything else to say before we move on with the show?
Oh, definitely. I definitely think Jared Allen definitely needs to be picked by Adam Silver.
Amen. Amen.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you kind of hit it all right there. So we really appreciate it. We appreciate you coming out to the stream and
support too. Appreciate you always coming in.
Yeah, we do appreciate the support, and we'll get you in here in the future. So we appreciate you, like we said, and go Cavs. Make sure you let them know.
Okay. Definitely.
Love it.
We're having a great time. We're only 20 minutes in, and we're having a great time. While Talking and Grubbing was giving us some good bullet points, it really hit it all there, actually. Did a better job than I did talking about, Jared Allen, another great performance. I know Justin already hit on that. We have this. Does LeVert make Okoro more expendable? And Justin, you hit on this. I kind of want to dive back into your thinking. Who do you think – we just did the segment in the last Cavs Encapsulated with Logan. Who's going to get more minutes down the stretch? Who do you think is the first one to go? Finnegan has joined the chat as a guest, but is Goodwin a goner, or do we still need another point guard?
I think Goodwin's a goner. I think the part about is Okoro more expendable is that trade talks. If it is, I feel like the talk about that would be, is it Sexton or is it Okoro? And now the problem there that I've been thinking about this whole time after we've gotten LeVert is, hey, we just saw the report that we're going to talk extensions with LeVert, but we still have to talk extensions with Colin. What's the process there? And this is the big point of this conversation that I wanted to get into. I really want to have this part of the conversation is, let's be honest, Caris LeVert and Colin Sexton are very similar players. Very similar players, I think. Both don't shoot the three ball particularly well, but can go and get a bucket when it's needed. And to be fair, they're going to be the fourth option on this team. And the Ricky Rubio thing also throws me for a loop. I don't know if he's going to come back or not. I just can't imagine having that many guards next season between LeVert, Sexton, and potentially Rubio coming back.
Yeah, everybody.
Yeah. So the big conversation I want to have here is what is the thought process right now with Colin Sexton and LeVert being on this team together or not, or who's getting the extension and who's getting signed and traded or something like that.
Here's the argument because, not everything's an argument, but here's the talking point. Ashton says, I think LeVert makes Colin more expendable. You've seen some news come in with Sexton. Of course, he signs with Clutch Sports. And I'm not trying to start conspiracy theories, but I swear the graphic they tweeted out from the Clutch Sports verified Twitter account, it said sign Colin Sexton, and the graphic said point guard. So I don't want to get into the weeds of things, but he hasn't played point guard for us for 2 years. He really was. They transitioned him away from a point guard last year. He was not playing point guard this year, no matter injury or not. So it's one of those things where it seems like every Clutch Sports signee ends up a Laker, because LeBron. That's just the running gag. I literally clicked on it. The verified Twitter account tweeted. I clicked on it. Literally future Laker. And I don't think he's in the fold for LA, or I wouldn't want him to be, but we have to talk about minutes going forward. We have some more suggestions. Dragic plus Gordon is the best team in the East. That's a hot take. Maybe, you never know that 2 more role pieces, because I think we could define LeVert as not a role piece, a role player. He's going to be a main player. Obviously not a big 3, but
yeah, you don't really want an idea of, and yeah, I do agree with Robert there. I think Goodwin is still very much, useful on this team. I think Rondo is just better for the games like today. But what I was saying is Dean Wade, Lamar Stevens, you have Dylan Windler way down that bench. Obviously hasn't been playing very good basketball. That's another young piece.
I think he's he's top of the block.
Right. I'd imagine there's some team out there that thinks Windler could be, pretty valuable. And I think he does still have value. I think he could turn into a really solid, maybe like Joe Harris kind of player one day. Who knows? I really don't know. But I do think that there is guys down this rotation that simply just aren't going to get minutes. And that's the questions you start having. I think that's a segment we could do on our next podcast on Cavs Encapsulated. Who deserves more minutes? I mean, like we did last time, but really the focal players now, like Stevens, Okoro, who deserves more minutes? Dean Wade versus whoever. I sometimes forget Lowry's even on the team because he's been injured lately. But it's that is another player. Who on earth is going to play for this team? And those are the things that's a good problem. Like I said, I think at the very beginning of the year, I said the Cavaliers finally have a good problem. And that's when I was talking about Garland and Sexton. I said that was a good problem to have, that we have to figure that out. Because right now you can still be good while figuring out what the answer is to that problem.
And to reiterate, a couple of things there. One, and it's tough to gauge, but a lot of the post-game media availability, pre-game media availability, I hear high praises for Lowry, specifically when he wasn't shooting very well. JB says he's a big part of what we do offensively and on the defensive side of the ball. He doesn't say that, that's a pretty bold statement from him. He's a pretty even keel type of guy. I really do think we will return to Lowry in the starting lineup, even with LeVert being the addition. LeVert will play the 2, and Garland will play the 1 when healthy, not Sexton or Goodwin, Garland or Goodwin. Brandon Goodwin, BG the PG. I saw the Cavs tweet that out. I said Jarius is going to get jealous. We better stop there.
But
This is where, and I want to reiterate a point here because everybody knows that Isaac Okoro, his defense is the premium.
Yep.
He gets discounted offensively because he's not an offensive threat. He really is just not. He is a once in a while slasher, and every time he gets the ball on transition, he needs to go to the rim because that's really the best part of his offensive game in transition.
Isaac Okoro is Tony Allen. Is that a hot take?
I thought
No.
you Cephalosha from the
Thabo
Thunder.
Cephalosha?
Yeah, I feel like that's been
Cephalosha
my
could at least
comp for
knock
him
down
for
a
a
three,
long
though.
time.
I mean, I'm waiting to see some more. I mean, I know that he's so young, and everyone's going to keep saying that, but
if we give LeVert Okoro's looks, I will be stupidly thrilled because Okoro gets stupid open looks.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. You can't say, I mean, all right, you could say whatever you want. I'm not here to mediate you. I'm not here to mediate your fandom because that's toxic. But when you say he's going to be he's going to be a first team all defense for years to come. Nobody is discrediting that line of thinking. But now with LeVert potentially being a starter, how is Okoro's offensive game going to come along with even less minutes? He's been starting consistently for this team all season. He started down the stretch last year. We haven't seen any improvement with those, that usage rate, that amount of minutes. So him coming off the bench, and you saw it tonight, JB wanted Rondo and Lamar Stevens out there. Okoro was on the bench when we were making big runs. The defense was playing good to the point where the defense, I think, is a team thing, is a JB thing. We've seen it in the past NBA history. We've seen it with Greg Popovich's teams. It's not that easy on offense. You can't just be like, okay, we're going to play team offense and it's going to work every single night. We saw that in the first 2 quarters tonight. We can't shoot the ball very well. We could play team defense all the way in the second half, regardless of who's out there. 35-year-old Rondo stealing the ball. Kevin Love taking charges, coming to the back end of his career. Active hands, everybody. Lamar Stevens is a dog. So, and this is what we're talking about, Matt. You guys think Lowry will get moved to the bench? There's going to be some question marks. That's why maybe adding somebody else is murky. Cavs in 4. It don't matter.
I guess that's like the idea is like, will JB go the opposite route and go not super small, but
go away from big.
Right. Would he go with LeVert at the 3 and continue to start Okoro at the 2 and Garland when he's healthy back at the 1?
I think Okoro, LeVert, and Garland together at stages in the game is a good way to go. I think that's really good energy, really good speed. I don't like it to start. At the end of the day, we are successful because we have gone totally against the grain in the NBA. Why change it up at this rate right now?
That's what.
And also thinking. The other thing you have to think about, I don't think LeVert's going to immediately start. I really don't.
I don't either.
I think he has to learn the offense a little bit, get acquainted, and once he has one of those 20-point performances, then they're like, okay, let's go ahead and put it in. LeVert is a guy that could score 30 on any given night. He is a professional scorer. I mean, his value will show pretty quickly, assuming he fits in well, but I don't think he gets that early start. So it's going to be – I think there's going to be a couple of games here where the Cavaliers might look a little funky because there's always that transition phase that people underestimate when a move is made.
I just wonder if there's a chance that LeVert just stays on the bench the entire season. I honestly think that you look back to when Rubio was here and healthy, that he was coming off the bench pretty early on. He was one of the first substitutions, and Okoro would come out. And I feel like that's a very good idea when, Garland is healthy and Garland's active because you have someone who is, out. I mean, listen, we've started multiple different people at guard trying to fix the Garland situation, and it hasn't worked out great. We've had guys do decent. We've had guys fail, and we've had guys have maybe one game where they do well. But it's really thrown this team off, and in general, something that I want to get into is like individual players have played poorly without Garland there, and it's shown. And, obviously being hurt, you have to expect these things. We've been dealing with way too many injuries at one position, being the guard spot. So I just think that the best situation for us, or the best way to work LeVert, is maybe to have him come off the bench and continue to have him come off the bench to provide that kind of boost at the guard position when, Garland might need a little bit of an extra boost.
Right. I mean, the idea here, guys, and really think about it, if our starting 5 stayed the same, and we always talk about the big 3, it used to be Rubio, Love, Jetty. Now it's obviously Rondo. Now imagine adding Caris LeVert as well.
Right.
I mean, you have 2 really two lineups that you can throw out there that are both going to be very productive. I like the idea of Caris at least playing that 28 to 32 minute mark, though, even if he comes off the bench. I think that's what John was alluding to. Because Garland, even when he plays, we see how desperate he is for another ball handler just to give him some breath more than anything, just so he doesn't have to hurt his back and sit 4 or 5 games. He doesn't need to put as much effort forth if a guy like LeVert is constantly, his wingman.
I think this trade is twofold for JB Bickerstaff. It makes his job easier in the sense that he gets another scorer, but it makes his job difficult, even more difficult than it's been to an extent, because your general manager goes out there, matches the $17 million for Rubio, gives up a first and 2 seconds. I think he's going to be hard pressed to bring him off the bench all year long, because you literally shelled. Rubio isn't playing, so I do understand that. But in reality, you shelled 4 players for this guy. You got 2 back in theory, and of course, recency bias, not that I'm disappointed with the game, because tonight's game was great and I loved the outcome, obviously. But this first half tonight, Okoro has 0 points in the first half tonight. So it was a good statement second half to say, hey, we didn't even really need this score. This is we're going to try to make a playoff run move. But at the end of the day, when you shoot as bad as you did and you don't have somebody to run the offense through, Evan Mobley hitting this rookie wall where, we're into the deep part of the season. We all need the All-Star break one, but it's like LeVert could have maybe gave you 10 to 15 points in that first half, and we aren't even thinking about a fourth quarter comeback. So it's going to be interesting. I do agree. Let's hit up the chat. Love it. Love great addition. Fits us, period. I'm hoping the fit works, man. I really am. I don't have any evidence to see why it won't, but I'm just hoping it, exceeds expectations. Mike says the Cavs and Utah are the only teams not playing overtime game this year.
Cavs haven't gone to OT?
And I think a game with Utah almost went to OT. So that's kind of fun.
I think I'm thinking those 2 games. Wow.
I think the first one was pretty close. We lost by 1 or 2.
Oh, it was crazy close.
I'll try to look for it.
Ashton says, I haven't seen the leaps in Okoro's defense. Honestly, I think of young, great defenders. I think more of Lonzo, Caruso, and Thibault. The issue with quantifying Isaac Okoro and many defenders is that depending on what stats you look at, it's very difficult to tell who's really a good defender. There's on ball, there's off ball. Who are they guarding every night? Are you guarding the best player on the other team? Are you guarding a bum like every night? So it's very difficult depending on where you look for stats. But I think it's tough to dispute he's at least a good defender, maybe even great. And that was a shtick coming out of college. That's why we drafted him. Ben says, could you see Colin Green to come off the bench as a point guard? Followed up by, not when he's looking for his payday, Ashton says.
Yep.
And there's a timeline, there's an alternate universe timeline that he loves this team. He says he wants to be here, and somebody offers him a bag in the offseason, and he leaves, and we don't match. I don't want to think like that. I'm sure a lot of the fans don't want to think like that, but you have to put that into the equation.
Very realistic, yeah.
Yeah, it's a real, we could match, but if we are serious about offering LeVert, an extension of some sort, Justin brings up the point where you're going to have to figure out what Colin is going to do, what his value is as far as teams, and that's why I kind of think he might be in the mix to be moved, because there is a percentage chance you could lose him. He could walk for nothing, really.
Yeah. No, you never know, too. I mean, you could think that back to
you could pay both of them.
Well, yeah, but I'm thinking, you could think back to last year when we made the trade for Prince and Allen.
Mm-hmm.
What is the potential that Sexton has a KPJ moment, or maybe not so much a KPJ moment where he throws a bowl of soup,
right?
But he goes and he complains to the front office about, what are you doing? Why are you bringing in this player that plays very similar to me?
Good point.
And on on an extension year or whatever, and maybe that sparks a trade. Who knows? But the Sexton talk with LeVert now is super interesting in my mind, because there's still the potential to make a trade before the end of this. We have 4 more days. Yeah. Don't really know who's out there that you could kind of trade for the same value of a Colin Sexton. But at this point, what are we looking for? I think we're looking for a spot up shooter at guard for the 3-point line. But outside of that, I don't know. It's really interesting to just think about the future of this deal. I think right now it's a great move, but when you get to this offseason, there could be a lot of things that, we hear, and who knows.
Yeah, that's honestly, that has totally gone right over my head. The fact that Sexton could, I don't think he's that type of guy to have a total freak out, but pro sports, man, it's like, I understand it's romanticized as like this team game, and the best team usually performs very well and has a lot of success. I don't disagree with that, but you have to think that these guys, especially on rookie deals, haven't gotten their bag yet. Sexton, I don't, it really is awful that he went down with the injury. I think that he does love this team and he really loves playing for the Cavs, but he's going to have to do what's best for him. If somebody else is offering 28, 29 million for him and Kobe just isn't going to match it, he's not going to match it. And I don't know what to say beyond that. Logan, I know you got to dip out of here, so if you have anything else before you
I'll get my last point here. I think the play of Caris LeVert, depending on how he fits in, will also answer a lot of questions about Colin Sexton's future. So I think it's kind of just a wait and see, which probably means he probably isn't going anywhere before the deadline. But, unless the right deal is there, I think you kind of have to see how this plays out first. I think this is a great move. This is a great addition. I think guys, it's the first year truly that this rebuild has come into fruition. I mean, there is time to improve this team down the road and at the right price in the right situation. Great win for the Cavaliers tonight. I definitely had some nerves with that. Any win without Garland, like I said earlier, is a good win, depending on whatever the team is. When you shoot 30, mid 30s for the game, low 30s for the game, and you come out with a win, that's very impressive. So good job for the Cavs tonight, boys. Good talking to you. Thank you to the two people that have jumped in and actually joined us here on the screen. Don't be afraid to jump in once I get out, guys. And I'll talk to you guys soon.
See you, Logan.
See you, Logan. Appreciate it. As Logan has said, a 98-85 victory for your Cleveland Cavaliers over the Indiana Pacers. Not only do we take one of their best players off of them pregame, then we beat them without him. That was probably my favorite part of the trade, is that Kobe made sure we didn't have to play against him. He could have waited a couple more days, and having LeVert, for them tonight could have beat us in a game where I told you pregame it was not a must win. I don't know if there's must win games in NBA basketball regular season, but if you lose that game, you're falling closer to the play-in. It's not drastic, it's not dire, but losing to Houston, losing to Detroit has not been pretty. But as Logan was saying before he hopped off, there's a StreamYard link at the top row of the description. We got 40 people in here. If you want to come on, we are taking callers. You'll hop into a queue. I could add you right to the screen. You could say your 2 cents. You could come in camera on, camera off, and then I could take you right off. If anybody wants to voice opinions, talk about Caris LeVert, talk about the game, talk about our bench mob. If you're a Pacers fan involved in the chat, we would honestly love to hear from you at the end of the day too. If you're a fan of NBA basketball, we will bring you on. I've seen this being floated. Hopefully Rubio comes back during the offseason on a cheap 2-year deal. I think he likes playing here.
Yeah.
There was that report where he said as soon as his kids are in school, he's going to retire. And I think his kids he just had a kid. So I'm not sure what that timeline is. Maybe like 3 or 4 more years, 4 or 5 more years. Yeah. A lot of Sexton and Okoro talk tonight. And it
makes the most sense. I mean, it's just time relevant.
Robert brings up Lowry, and we haven't talked about Lowry, but I don't think he's I don't think he's an untouchable.
I've tried to look up trades with, and first of all, the one thing that I can think of as, I was like, what the heck are you doing? The one trade that I found with Sexton that you can do straight up is the Kemba Walker trade. Kemba straight up for Colin Sexton is a trade.
What's Kemba's contract looking like this year?
2 years for $8 million. So
Kemba instead of Goodwin.
Kemba instead of Rondo and Goodwin. Listen, I know Logan's not here to defend his guy right now, but someone made the comment of like, hey, we can't rely on a third or fourth game, like a random game for Rondo to come alive and actually do something. This was like the first game since he's been here that, he dished out 12 assists and also had a good amount of points as well. So,
and I know we're going to get pushback for this because, it's easy to just think that we said something and we, Would you agree? I think we would, that optically a Kemba for Sexton trade
people will
we
probably
would lose. That would be a loss for us optically.
Yeah, people would be upset because they would be like, well, Colin's still a starter on this team, but at this point you've just added LeVert, unless you're trying to tell me that, the idea here is like, all right, what does LeVert mean in the long term with Colin Sexton and Okoro? That's why we have so much of these, questions about who's more expendable, Sexton or Okoro. I don't know. Someone else tried to bring up the point of what are LeVert's defensive stats. Again, I don't know too much about that. But if you're going to talk about what optically we've seen, LeVert is a very much, an offensive player first. And that's why you kind of have to keep Okoro to bring on and be the big defensive player at the guard position. So, yeah, people will probably be upset with us that we're trying to suggest Kemba for Sexton. But our resident Sexton defender has just left. So there might be a little bit of that going on between the two of us here.
Well, the Kemba thing is like worst case scenario. Like if you could trade Sexton for, even if we traded Sexton for like a role player, it would be better than what we were talking about him potentially leaving in the offseason if we don't want to match an offer and rather pay LeVert. So there's pros and cons.
From that.
Yeah, you could have Colin Sexton walk. You get nothing. He could go to an Eastern Conference team. You never know. He could go to I don't know. Who needs a guard really? He could go to Miami, I guess. I'm not really too certain, but he could go somewhere else if, they have money to spend. But we have another person in the chat, Sam. We're going to go to Sam. We're going to talk whatever they want to talk about. What's going on, Sam?
Hey, can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah, you sound great.
Thanks. Yeah, so I've been watching the Cavs this year. I honestly wasn't paying too much attention post LeBron years, but it's been so exciting to watch.
Don't blame you for that, but
yeah. I find myself thinking back to LeBron's first stint and not comparing this team to previous Cavs teams, but the Detroit Pistons. The big Afro defensive center. We had a lot of length, but no true one superstar that provided a bulk of the scoring. And if Darius Garland becomes a big-time player in big-time games like Chauncey Billups, I could see this team really going far.
Chauncey Billups. That's Jeff, isn't that the comparison you had earlier in the year?
Early.
Yeah, you were Logan.
I'm upset, Sam, because this is literally Logan's alley, and he just got off. He's compared this team to one of the Grizzlies teams from, I think that was the late 2000s or maybe early 2010s. And there's been some comparisons drawn to this Detroit team that Logan has made. He does see some similarities, not in previous Cavs teams, but teams that have been really good in the NBA who aren't superstar oriented. I think that you could define Garland as, a superstar on the rise. And the issue with that is that I see is when we had LeBron, there were some teams that had incredible regular seasons. So it's really like LeBron he would come and not play the whole year, or he would not try the whole year is what I'm trying to say. Sam said he can't hear for technical difficulties, but Sam, we appreciate you. What I'm trying to say is there used to be teams like Atlanta. There used to be teams like Toronto who, when we had LeBron the first time or the second time, they would play good all season long, be out of gas, and we would sweep them. So I like the comparisons being drawn to some older teams in the NBA, some older style of basketball. Ben Wallace is that's a great point. That Pistons team is great. Sam, we really appreciate you hopping on. Sorry we couldn't get the sound to work. Sorry you couldn't hear us, but I wonder if Sam was coming through Twitter or YouTube because I'm actually streaming to both. So, because that was weird because I heard him perfectly. Yeah,
I did as well. So, but I mean, great points brought up by him. Obviously, this is a team first, team. Sorry, I should have said team first squad or whatever. But, it's very much, not dependent on one player. Obviously, yes, Darius Garland is, an all-star this year. He's been great for us, the best player on our team. You can see his, you can see him being missed through these past 4 games. I think a lot of players on this team have had up and down games since that's happened. And so obviously we've still been able to pull it out in games that we needed to. That Charlotte game was a huge one. I think it was the biggest game in that 4-game stint without Garland. And
Agreed.
you could argue that the team coming back from, 36 points in the first half, 38 points in the first half to winning this game. Obviously, you can make the argument that that was a testament to this being, a team-oriented squad and them just fighting for everything and trying to do what they can without one of their best players. But it is really phenomenal to see that we are kind of bringing back that old NBA style of team play.
Yeah, for sure. That's been the theme all year, and that's been, to your credit, your point all year, Justin. Sam is back. Sam, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I think
Okay,
they
cool.
had a video game running, and it was like
What video game was running, if you don't mind me asking?
yeah, Counter-Strike Global Offensive.
Ooh,
Okay,
CS:GO.
CS:GO players in the chat. Because small sample size, but I don't really think Logan's gamer. Me and Justin are big gamers and Cavs
Big-time
fans. So
gamers.
Bennett's a big Cavs fan. He was in here earlier. Mike and Ricky who were on the show. So I think the Northeast Ohio area has some fun gamers. But what else do you got for us tonight, Sam?
Yeah, I unfortunately missed some of the discussion, like post comparison, but
Yeah, we were just talking about team basketball and how it could go one of two ways. Like we could be a really good regular season team and run out of gas in the postseason, as we saw with some of the Atlanta and Toronto teams when LeBron was here the first and second time, where we just swept them. They would end up being the 1 or 2 seed and be out of gas. But we really do appreciate your Detroit comparison for sure with Ben Wallace.
yeah, I think that brings up a good point too, and that like sometimes that's determined by the teams you play. Like LeBron being in the conference closed doors for a lot of teams, and it's the one thing that scares me about both Giannis with the Bucks and mostly Kevin Durant with the Nets. There are some players out there that just have the ability to close a door for a team for many years, like the Cavs ran into back in the 90s. So.
The 90s is a great point. I was talking with my uncle literally yesterday about how we had these stacked rosters, and the Bulls, like, obviously they didn't only have Jordan, but like the Bulls had Jordan in the 90s.
Yeah.
We've also seen in the past 2 years, especially, since the COVID season started and with the bubble, obviously we've seen two teams like the Suns, who I think are very team oriented. They obviously have Devin Booker, Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton, but you also had the team from 2 years ago with the Heat with Jimmy Butler, Tyler Herro, and Bam. Right. And obviously, some of those teams have struggled to finish it off and finish the push, but they've gotten to that championship game. I think they're either a game away or a player away from being able to win it all. But it's good to see that we're kind of coming back to that capability of having team-oriented basketball make it to the championship.
For sure.
Yeah. If I could pose one last question to you guys.
Of course.
How much or how do you split up the credit between players, Bickerstaff, and Kobe Altman in terms of bringing that team-based philosophy?
Wow. We've taken viewers for one show, and I've figured out our viewers have better questions and are smarter than us, because that's a great question. This is what we've talked about a little bit in some older Cavs Encapsulated videos. I'll start, and I'm going to sound biased because I am. Players, I would say this is tough. Out of 100%, I'm giving JB like at least 40%. That might be a high watermark, but I'm thinking off the cuff, I'm saying JB 40, players 40, and Kobe 20. Now, I'm the pessimist when it comes to Kobe Altman. I will admit he's made some stellar moves this season. I haven't agreed with everything he's done in the past, and that's okay. Justin, how would you divvy that up? And then Sam, we want to hear from you.
Man, it's tough because you look back to the John Beeline year and straight up just dude got ran out by the players.
Bad.
But then you also have to look back at JB's team last year. They didn't play very well, and he had that whole year. And so you have to kind of be a little bit more accepting of what Kobe has done. Obviously, he's taking gambles. We never knew that Markkanen and Rubio would have worked out as well as they did. We were so upset that we traded Larry Nance, a fan favorite, for Laurie. And, it had the Rockets taken Evan Mobley, we would have been stuck with Jalen Green, and this team would be, completely different. But at the same time, a lot of the things that happen in the NBA are luck in terms of injuries and how you go about handling those. And I think Kobe's done a great job. I want to say it's like 35-35 between. No, that's too much to give to. I don't know. It's tough. It's tough to divvy it up between three because I think they're all rewarding of getting some sort of percentage. I think Jeff's right on there. I want to say like 35 to JB, 35 to the players, and then the rest to Kobe because he has to assemble this team.
Right. Sam, how would you divvy it up?
Yeah. I think one of the like unsung pieces of, and it maybe highlighted tonight with Kevin Love's performance, is JB's job of getting that veteran leadership to buy in and accept a role. I find that pretty rare watching basketball, like on a team without LeBron. I think we saw a lot of veteran players fit their role, but that can go one of two ways. So I probably up JB to like 40%.
I don't blame you for that.
Yeah. Like I came into the year thinking he's coaching for his job, and we saw the extensions all around. It's been cool to see just like a unified front there. I feel like the Browns this isn't a Browns show, so I won't go into it. But
it is when we're
once
not
in a while.
Cavs.
Yeah.
Right. But so I give Altman a total A for this year. So I maybe give him 20, and I guess that leaves 40 for the players, the ones actually making the shots.
Yeah, what a great question, Sam. We really appreciate you, buddy. Appreciate you stopping by and supporting the stream. Good luck on CSGO tonight.
I appreciate it, man. Take it easy. Thanks.
See ya.
Thank you.
What a great question.
Yeah, I mean, we've tried to have those conversations early on, but it's great to have our viewers kind of just picking up on like what we've been trying to lay down for them. And obviously we try to present the, best version of the Cavs or whatever team we're talking about. And I feel like that has been such a huge talking point is like, hey, we got guys up for multiple awards in our minds. JB for Coach of the Year.
Yep, an updated video is coming soon for that.
Yeah, we have so many guys that a year ago it was not imaginable. Like a lot of this team from last year is just playing a whole lot different than, in years past. And so obviously we sit, I believe Ashton the Joker said that we're one game back from being number one in the Eastern Conference at this point. At the point of me writing my newsletter for tomorrow, we were fourth, but it just keeps going up. And the view on this team is just so astronomically different that, it's great to have these kind of conversations with our fans. So I'm very happy and privileged to be here and having guys come in and, sound a lot better than we do most of the time.
That was a good way to put it because we've been trying to talk about that all year. Like who gets like we've literally said that who gets the percentage, and he just asked like, how do you divvy it up? So that was a perfect way to do it. We're 52 minutes in. We're going to go two more callers because I have two in the queue. Curtis was here first, actually has DM'd me on Twitter personally. So Curtis, what is going on, my man?
What's up? Yo,
hey, we can hear you great, actually.
We're losing you in and out.
Oh, I think you muted. Maybe just plug it in and.
No, we're good. You hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Perfect.
Yep.
What's going on, dude?
Doing well. I just got back from the game. Actually, it was
okay.
Are you wearing the jumper?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, look at that.
Sick. How was the energy? Great. How was the energy down there?
So, the first half was just terrible. Like I didn't clap like one time. It was unreal. But the second half, I haven't been to a Cavs game like that since LeBron. Obviously, I think I went to the Christmas Day game when it was Cavs when we beat the Warriors when KD got there, and haven't seen a game like that since then. I mean, it was electric. That was
Jeff and I went to our first, well, not our first game, but the first game
in a while, 2
in
years.
a long time, before or since COVID happened, and we went to that Celtics game where we were down big at halftime, and I think we were down still in the third quarter going into the fourth quarter. And
Evan Mobley chase down block on Tatum.
Man, does
Crazy.
that place get electric again, even without LeBron?
It was a sellout for sure. I mean, it was
Wow.
packed. We've got some great fans for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
How are you feeling LeVert side? Love it, hate it, or just satisfied?
So, I mean, to start off, he was not my target. You know, I was kind of just 50-50 on him, but I think he fits a great piece on this team. I think he makes a lot of sense. He dropped 40 points the other night. We don't have a player that's scored 40 points, I don't think, ever. I mean, Kevin Love maybe back in the day, but like,
it's a good point.
I think Sexton's done it. I think Sexton did it against the Nets when they first formed, they were dysfunctional, and we're not so sure Kyrie plays a whole lot of defense or James Harden for that matter. But yeah, I don't. The interesting part about him dropping the 40 points is we know the Indiana Pacers aren't great. My biggest thing is I want to see a lot of his, usage and percentages go up because of him not having to bear the load of a awful team. We're a team that's competing for the top 4 seeds in the Eastern Conference, and so he's not going to be asked to carry that weight. He might if Garland's still out for a bit, but outside of that, I mean, he's coming into a great situation.
Yeah, and we didn't give up too much to get him, so I like it a lot.
Right, only one active player, as Justin's been saying. That was kind of going to be the gripe. Like, I thought they were going to be looking for at least Okoro or a Sexton, but they're desperate, and it's not. I don't know how to phrase this. Like, it's not. It's easy to say this because the Cavs are playing great, but it's like it's not the worst time to be desperate in the East. Like, I feel like the NBA is actually scarily wide open. You see teams like the Cavs come on. We just played Charlotte, who's having, I think, above expectations. Toronto's playing above expectations. Of course, you have Memphis in the West. You have these teams making runs. Boston has been playing inspired basketball the last 2 weeks as well as the Dallas Mavericks. So it's not totally monopolized by big threes. Like, the Lakers don't got no big three right now.
They're done.
Brooklyn has like a 0.5, 1.5 with KD hurt.
They've lost 8 in a row. I mean,
I was gonna look and see when's the last time like a franchise lost 8 in a row. Like, if the Cavs lost 8 in a row, I would be violently ill.
They said
8 in a row is a lot.
That's even lost 7 in a row has ever won the chip.
I saw that.
I don't see it for them. I mean, maybe they're.
Like, I think Philly's even playing like above expectations with basically just Embiid carrying them the whole way along. So I like our chances in the East, and I like what's going on here. Do you think we're done at the dedeadline, or do you think that there's another piece coming along?
I think since they moved so early with this, like that they're ready to make another move. And
Curtis, who was the guy that you said at the top that you didn't want LeVert? He wasn't at the top of your list. Did you have someone pegged for a certain reason?
I mean, I didn't have anyone pegged. Obviously, like a big name like Brandon Ingram or Murray would be great, but like I knew that was pretty unrealistic. So like I thought Buddy Hield would be good because he's a proven shooter, but like his contract's pretty big and his defense isn't great. I think LeVert, is he good on defense? I don't know.
That's the thing that I've been trying to ask, and obviously, Jeff's our resident stat guy. We're gonna have something for you guys on Cavs Encapsulated, but that's the big question. Is he's not a great free throw shooter. He's not a great 3-point shooter. He can't go get a bucket, but we know that there's a player that's currently injured that can do the same thing. Yeah. So long term, what is his long term role on this team?
This is what I kind of look at, and it's kind of obscure, but this is from 538. They actually do political polling is their main shtick, but they have an NBA arm of their brand, and this is what's called Raptor. It's kind of confusing to get into as far as like explaining it live.
Top right is better.
Yeah, like they have a pretty extensive explanation on their website, but he's +2 offensively and -2.6 defensively. So for a quick snapshot, his WAR is actually, he has a 1.4 WAR, and if you want to look at Okoro, Okoro is basically inverted, a 1.1 WAR from Raptor.
That's my reasoning for not wanting to trade Okoro. I feel like he's a guy NBA is two sides. You play offense and defense.
Correct.
Most guys come in better on offense. Like, it's rare to find a guy that comes in and impacts on defense right away. And he's 21 years old. If we weren't so good, everyone would be just like salivating over the guy. Like, give him one off season to work on his jumper, and he'll be.
He's just a mad hustle guy. Like,
He really
I feel
is.
like that we saw it at times tonight, and I feel like we see it really often. Like, he's just busting his ass all the time up and down the court. Obviously, like, we watched Evan Mobley. We've seen him do chase down blocks, have super effort blocks and such. But, like, Okoro's that guard position where you don't get a lot of defense. Like, granted, I think Garland's improved a lot, and I think he's, you know, improved because of how he plays the screens and everything. But Okoro just overall is going to be the guy that dives and scraps and goes after someone on the defensive side of the ball.
I think that what's the thing about Okoro to me, though, as far as the landscape of the NBA, you see guys who maybe were undrafted, who weren't, you know, a top 5 pick. It's always going to be the expectations plus what value he brings to you. You know, I'm trying to like set up this formula where I could define players in my own way, like 538 Raptor does. But you see it with these 3-and-D guys. They go undrafted, overlooked, and then they come in, they hustle, they work hard to get into the league, they play defense, and then their shot comes along. I don't discredit that in 5 years, Isaac Okoro could be akin to Kawhi Leonard, could be akin to Jimmy Butler. But my rebuttal to that is, do the Cavs have a 5-year window to wait around? You could argue, I think you could argue yes, but
all it takes is
go ahead.
one off season to get that jumper right.
I agree with you in the age and giving them one off season, but it's like,
but yeah,
does it work logistically with money? If we're going to give LeVert an extension, we have to pay Love, of course, this year and the $30 million next year, unless you're going to sell him. But he's making it impossible to sell him. There's no reason to sell him. Allen's got 20 mil. Garland's going to be up. Sexton's in the fold. What's up?
What about, I mean, big news with Clutch. I'm kind of worried about it because I think he's going to demand, or they're just going to demand more money just because Clutch. Like, that's my take.
Sexton signs with Rich Paul, then Cavs automatically trade for LeVert. I think this is funny, like, because this is what happened, but it's not like that. It's not like causation and correlation. You know, it's like the LeVert thing was in the works way before.
Oh, yeah, we needed him just for this season.
Like, yeah, right. But it's like the Clutch news does come out like kind of weird. Like, why didn't he get that done in the offseason when he was, you know, he was going back and forth saying he wanted, you know, maybe 30 million. Altman was like a little skittish. So lots of good points there, Curtis. Anything else? We got one more caller, and we really appreciate you, dude. Sick being at that game tonight.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was wild.
All right, bro. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming, man. Great points.
Let them know.
Let them know. Add away.
We love it. We love it. This is what I was talking about with our fans, dude. Like, they just get us. They get us, and, you know, I feel like we're giving a little bit of ourselves to them, and they're picking up on it. I just love seeing that.
We appreciate this. This is the best podcast in Cleveland sports. Here before you blow up. That's love right there. That's real. Yeah. If you haven't yet, like the video. Crazy stream, crazy game.
66 people.
Holy moly, crazy dude. And we're trying to get to everybody. I know we missed a lot of chats, but Mike is in the queue. Mike, what's going on? Mike from the chat.
Mike.
Hey guys, man, I love your show. You guys really bring it. You really bring the content, man.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
I said, well, I'll type something in there, man. These guys respond to everything you type in there. Where do you get that? You know, well, of course, you got your more popular guys, you know, and then your chat just never stops. But you guys got off to a great start. Really proud of you.
Thanks, Mike.
Hey,
really appreciate it.
Honestly, I picked these Cavs for 45 wins.
Wow.
Okay.
This year.
That's bold. No, I don't think anybody else has that ticket laying around.
Hey, I'm like, what, am I seeing things? Or did they not come out last year? They were like 10-8 or something, and then they had that one
fell
game
off the railing.
It's like everybody forgot this. Every radio announcer in the world forgot that they were pretty good, and they hit that one game, which honestly, did you see any recovery from that until Kevin Love came back? And here's another thing they forgot.
Kevin Love's
Kevin
playing
Love came
basketball.
back in those last 2 games. Was it 1 or 2? I think it was 2. And he was fabulous in both of them.
We worked ourselves out of less chance for ping pong balls.
All you heard was, oh, Kevin Love, got to trade him. Gotta trade him. GOT.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. Well,
and now why shouldn't they, after picking up? Well, Jared, you could see he was kind of slowly fitting into what they're doing.
Sure.
Not only Evan Mobley, I mean, what haven't they touched that hasn't turned to gold? I mean, you can start complaining a little bit about Coro or what offensive output these.
It's not always going to be great, right?
Have given you, but how can you complain that? Look how old they are. Only. Right. How can you possibly think of trading either one of those?
Sure.
Yeah. Whether Okoro or him, either one of them turns into some offensive juggernaut or not. Well, then you got to play. Then you got to pay 5 max contracts. You're going to have to. If these guys get too much better, you're going to.
Dan Gilbert's going to have to show out some money.
Here's the Mike. This is what.
That's why I say. That's why I'm a little bit iffy. I got to put. I want to hear you guys' thoughts on this too. After I say on this LeVert trade. Okay. What defensively is he going to give you what Colin give you? Well, I heard one that well, who was it on ESPN one? Are they going to let LeVert come in here and not play any defense?
I'm gonna have to find that report. That Mike, here's the thing, and we're not certain if you're a Browns fan, but kind of off topic. We'll get to your LeVert question, but this Cavs team is what the city of Cleveland needed. We didn't think we were gonna get it, but like it couldn't have come at a better time. Of course, you have a disappointing Browns season if you follow the other Cleveland sports, and nobody expected this. I totally agree with you. We totally relay your sentiment. Is he going to play defense? I think that this is the question Justin was asking too. The expectation, I think you have to temper expectations here, kind of how we brought in Rondo, as not comparing them as far as caliber, but the expectation bringing Rondo in was he's not going to be Rubio. And we even said that, and it's still tough to process. It's still tough. It's difficult to be like, I wish we were getting a little bit more from Rondo, but he is 35. He's coming to the end here. I think you trade for LeVert. You move for LeVert because you're not expecting him to give you that level of defense. I don't know if he's going to give you Colin Sexton defense. I don't think he's going to give you a Okoro defense, but you moved for him for the scoring aspect, being able to create. Justin, how do you feel about that?
Well, I think you got to believe in the thought process that JB Bickerstaff will get LeVert to buy in, just like he's gotten everyone else, like Garland, to buy in, and everyone else, Kevin Love, to buy into this defensive-minded presence that, as long as we keep teams under 100 points, we're going to win those games. We're going to win those games more often than not, and LeVert's got to buy into that, and he's got to do his part to contribute to us, stopping teams from getting to 100 and us putting up more than 100.
Well, isn't there like a defensive rating for every player? What is his? Do you have that stat?
We were looking at the overall Raptor. I don't know if NBA Advanced Stats has like individual stats. I'm not certain off the top of my head, but the advanced metric I use basically shows that LeVert is going to be like an invert of Okoro. Okoro is going to be, on the scale like a plus 1.2 defensive rating and a negative, 1 offensive rating. LeVert's going to be negative 1.2 defensively, but he's going to give you the 1.2, 1.3 offensively, actually have a better wins above replacement than Okoro. It's really not that big of a difference. It's like 1.4. LeVert has a 1.4 WAR and Okoro has a 1.1 WAR, but this is a good point, Mike. We're going to get into more advanced stats, and we're going to bring this up in the next episode of Cavs Encapsulated. So we appreciate that question for sure. Anything else for us?
Yeah, I loved LeVert when he first came on the scene.
Okay.
And I'll admit, hey, I was a little biased about how does he mix cancer and recovery with a game like basketball, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hey, it's going to be tough. It's kind of like you were talking about where is he going to fit in? This is really going to put JB to the test.
Mm-hmm. Like all year. I mean, that's a good point too, that you don't hear of many trades potentially saving a player's life. So Caris obviously went through that when we got Jared Allen. You know, that physical could have potentially saved his life, finding out he did have cancer. His injury history is something to be talked about. It is to be discussed, but at the end of the day, you're in such a good position right now. And of course, Colin Sexton is not able to play basketball with you, as well as Ricky Rubio, Darius Garland struggling with the back, Lowry on a timetable that's a little bit unknown. I've been unhappy with the transparency about Lowry's injury. I guess there's no rules. Like, they don't have to say if it's 2 weeks, if it's 3 weeks, but I would have liked to see a different, a timeline from people at the Cleveland Clinic. You hope you could get some definitive news from some of the best doctors on the planet, but it's whatever.
Yep.
Mike, we really appreciate it.
You have to say one more thing here.
Go ahead.
I predicted when they did start going good there at first of the year, that now the owner and the coach is not going to get any credit for this. They're either going to get, the players are going to get all the credit because of we didn't have talent before, really, in a nutshell.
Right.
The whole pieces were not fitting together even. But now that we had talent, you would think that, I posted this a couple times, you would think that the players would get all the credit if they did good. And how can you? And then just JB, man, the first couple games, he had no defense for him. I saw this one article about he came up with this Kevin Garnett defense back when he was in a mode. It was the Timberwolves, and somehow, Rubio being there and Kevin Garnett was in that same mix.
Right.
Both all helped to. You wonder how much Rubio had to do with that.
Exactly.
To come up with that defense after the first two games, which we put up terrible defensive numbers, and so we've almost had to have climbed in the defensive rating the whole year.
Oh yeah, our defense. We were third last time we checked defensive rating.
Yeah. That's all I wanted to add. You guys are great. Thanks for having me on, man. I'm going to try to get on here more often, come up with some better content.
Mike, we appreciate
you so much, Mike.
Put you guys to work, man.
Thank you so much.
The kind words, Mike. Have a good one. Make sure you let them know.
Yeah.
Mike, what a show, man. What's going on here? I know we said we were going to stop.
I think we had a Pacers fan come in for a minute while we had Mike on, and
I don't know. I don't know. Oh, maybe. All right. Yeah. Let's talk. I mean, I saw this. I didn't know if he was a Cavs fan or what, because this is funny. Like, this is something I would say, truthfully.
I think either we had one or two Pacers fans come in, because it seems like, and I could be wrong, Swami and Bad look like they're upset with this. I
want to talk about this because we haven't had, negative, like,
LeVert talk.
We've only heard it from the Cavs side. So obviously the optimism is running high, and it's just one of those things. We haven't heard of the negative. Horrible on D, bad 3-point shooter, and very inefficient high volume shooter.
Well, see, we knew about the 3-point, and to be fair, he doesn't shoot under 30%, so don't know that that's,
Horrible might be parabolic.
Yeah.
Or hyperbolic.
Bad, and plus he's the only player on the Pacers that we know of. I mean, obviously they've been selling this whole team for a minute now, and so, they're not playing well. Obviously, there's a lot to be desired for them, but The defense is the biggest question for me. Is what's his actual defense going to be like, and what's his potential with coming to a team like ours and being able to not have to take on the load of being the best player or one of the two best players.
Yeah, I mean, it's situational, it's positional, it's what looks is he going to be getting in comparison to when he was playing for the Pacers. And see, this is the issue. Like S2T7 says, just Google the player, click on his NBA profile, and click stat. Yes, it's tough when you're moving around and doing the live show. And when you type in like questions like this in Google, it brings you to different outlets. So like this is StatMuse. I've actually followed them on Twitter. It says Caris LeVert has a defensive rating of 114.6 this season. Okoro is 109.3, with I'm making the assumption lower is better.
Yeah.
So I mean that's your comparison there if you're going to look at him starting versus.
Well, and we looked at the Raptor too, and again, like they're not they're inverted on the Raptor.
We know that Okoro is a better defender. See, like Lowry has better numbers than Isaac.
Yeah, this is very much like it's going to be very team based too. Because again, the Pacers like Sabonis and Brogdon are like their two best players outside of LeVert, and then the rest of them are selling. They're all selling hard. Like we've seen it with the Cavs. We've seen the Cavs sell hard. Like
Right.
It's not a matter of like, hey, these guys are bad because they're bad, but it's a byproduct of the team not playing well. Like obviously Andre Drummond used to be an all-star player, comes and goes, and doesn't play fantastic on the Cavs. Jared Allen, he was just a role player on the Nets, and now is worked his way into the conversation of being an all-star on the Cavs. It's just a lot of like, how does the team play together and how do these pieces fit? Like Mike was saying, like, trying to make the pieces fit. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes you look bad and sometimes you look good. That's just how it is.
Ad is saying, I'm happy LeVert is gone. See, that's interesting. And I know, if you're excited for the future of your team, we're not going to knock you for that. But I don't know. I don't know what to think. Unbiasedly, I know what my eyes tell me as far as making the move, who the type of player I think he is, but it just shows you how blind fandom could make you, because this is literally a team in our division.
Yep.
And I could look at stats. I could go to StatMuse, Raptor, ESPN, NBA Advanced Stats. Me and from covering sports for the short time we have, 2 years, it doesn't tell the whole story.
Right.
And you don't really know until you see a guy play in and night out, play with players. We have a question about he starts while Garland is hurt. I mean, I think this is a gimme, but it's like if Garland misses any more time, I'm like,
he's already made it to the All-Star game. We've won.
I'm nervous though if he misses two. What do we have? 3 more games before the All-Star break? 2 or 3?
Yeah, we play the Spurs,
and then, but it's like, are they resting him so he could play in the All-Star game? I hope that's not the case. I don't think that's the case, but
I believe we have 4 more games. So the Spurs, the Pacers again, Philadelphia, and Atlanta. I mean, that's quite a bit of time for Garland, who I believe was he questionable for this game? Questionable or doubtful, whatever it may be.
He was
but,
questionable, I think.
I don't think they're saving him for the All-Star game. But
yeah, I don't think so either.
If they feel good enough, I mean, they've won 3 out of the 4 games that he's missed so far. So obviously, we've been scraping by with 3-point victories, 1-point victories, and then today we played, a very bad team in my opinion and got double-digit point win. But San Antonio, Indiana, Philadelphia, Atlanta, those last 2 games before the All-Star break are games that you would really hope Garland is back for and playing so that you can pick up wins against 2 very good teams in your conference.
Yeah, and Ashton says, defense is an eye test as far as LeVert.
Right.
We have Swish Life Media, new subscriber from Cleveland, Ohio. We do appreciate that. It's cool to see who is from where. If you're wherever you're tuning in, feel free to drop it in the chat. Cleveland, we have some people comment like we're from Australia and love the Cavs, so we like seeing where everyone is from. I mean, Bad's going off here. If he buys in as a 6-man, maybe he'll do fine. But as a starter, I don't see him doing good.
See, that was my thing, though. I thought that it's a very possible thing that he comes off the bench and is the spark plug like Rubio was. And then, you know, towards the end of games, you know, dependent on situation, if we need to get a bucket, he's going to be in there with Garland. If we need to get defense and get stops, you know, Okoro will be there instead. I mean, it could be – that's what we've been saying, though, about this team all season is, like, you have to buy into whatever JB's telling you, you got to buy into, and the other players are telling you. I mean, that's really what this team has evolved into is, like, you have to buy in no matter what, no matter who you are. Like, that's the great thing. Like, you don't go out and you don't get, like, a big-headed name. Like, who knows if Jaylen Brown's a big head and, you know, he has a huge personality. I think everyone in the Cavs right now has a very nice level-headed view on how the game of basketball needs to be played, and that's why – we're seeing everyone buy in and get to the point of the season where we're competing for the first seed in the Eastern Conference. Like, no one had us pegged for that. Right. No one.
And, you know, truthfully, this is tough to disagree with. I'm just saying I don't see LeVert being the guy to put Cleveland over the top as a contender. I agree. I think this is like, all right, we're gunning to get out of the first round, which is like, you know, I mean, winning the playoff series is huge. Just in general, especially if we did it without LeBron. Like, that sounds corny and I don't want to think like that, but like, if we won a playoff series this year, I think people already peg us ahead of schedule. I would, you know, I'm a little bit pessimistic. I kind of peg us like right on schedule because we've had like 3 years of terrible basketball after LeBron. I understand it takes time. I understand you have to have patience, but
let's get these.
Go on.
Ooh. I want to say let's get these last two that came in after bad comments, because I feel like they both fit in a very good way, and then we're gonna have to cap it because we've been going on for a very long time.
80
but
minutes.
Fifth best player on the team at best. I think he's like fourth. You know, technically, I mean, you'd have to think Garland, Allen, Mobley. And then you could really maybe argue for everyone else, you know, Kevin, Chetty.
Like collectively.
Right. But that's, you know, that's what Sexton was. And that's going on to the next comment with Tony is if LeVert works, what do you guys think we could get out of Sexton? And that's the biggest question.
That's the question.
Is Sexton's up after this year. He's a restricted free agent. You don't get a guarantee on him outside of the fact that you can match any deal that he's given. If a team wants to give him what we weren't willing to give him last summer, then you can most likely bet that he's gone and LeVert's getting an extension. But it's also a double-sided sword where you're like, all right, if LeVert doesn't play well, then maybe contract extensions with him stall and you try to trade him next season and sign Sexton for whatever you can.
Is that I think you just might have gave Kobe's whole playbook. Is that the thing? See if LeVert plays good and then figure it out at the end of the year if you don't move Sexton before Thursday?
That's the key that I've been thinking about all day. Is like, hey, what is the actual what I think I texted it in the group message is like, hey, is there a long-term plan where this LeVert move is just a catalyst for another move in the summer for a player that's unhappy with their situation or whatever? Obviously, the big caveat to what we've been saying before this trade happened and for the trade deadline in general is teams sell hard at the trade deadline. Yep. They don't trade as hard desperate in the summer. So it'll be interesting to see how those kind of, you know, play out. You have LeVert, and I think you can work the LeVert, you know, contract or the year of him staying into Collins' contract and be like, hey, you're like, we've got another player kind of like you. Take this amount of money with this time and be happy with it. And maybe then you work out another different trade. So a lot of moving pieces.
Jumping back up to the original comment, at this deadline, per what it was going to cost to bring people in, I don't think there was anybody there to make us, you know, finals favorites.
Yep.
You could have, but you're selling a lot for Ben Simmons. For why, like if you watch this Cavs team play, which you may not have, you may have, like we're not totally certain, but it's like this team ain't being a contender if you add Simmons. They're not being a contender if you add Harden. You know, per what you would have to give up, perfect world, like, free agency next offseason could be interesting for this Cavs team. Someone was talking about it earlier, like next season is going to be crazy. You don't want to get ahead of yourselves. Like there's still games here, of course. And Ashton, bringing it up, playoff series at this point right on schedule, or lose a competitive series. He says you're the inside of the front office. So
I wish I had it more so for the Browns, but hey, I mean, it's just like, it's really interesting to try to get into the minutia of the inner workings of a Kobe Altman, who's made a lot of questionable moves and a lot of moves that have panned out. So you never know.
Yes, and at the end of the day, Cavs beat the Pacers today, kind of maintain our foothold in the Eastern Conference standings. Justin, anything else before we hop off here tonight?
Listen, I think we talked a lot of basketball tonight. I think we talked a lot about this Cavs team. However, if you guys are still here, you're still watching with us right now, make sure that you like, subscribe, hit the bell notification, because we are going to have another installment of Cavs Encapsulated. And I tried to tell at the top of the show that I'm going to hold a lot of things back because I wanted to talk more on Cavs Encapsulated about how I felt over this 4-game span, about certain players and the certain impacts of other guys. So make sure you tune in for that, and make sure that you guys are definitely sticking with us.
Yeah, we once again really appreciate you guys. Mike, Sam, Curtis, Bennett. Shout out to Logan doing his thing down where he's at right now. So, I mean, crazy time for Cavs basketball. Ashton, we really appreciate you being in chat as always as well, my guy. Everyone in chat, Cavs fans, Pacers fans, fans of the NBA. We really do appreciate you sticking around for this 80 to 90-minute live stream. Bennett, appreciate you. That's it. That's Cavs Encapsulated, the post-game pulse. Everybody in here, we really appreciate you. Make sure that before we see you next, make sure, like I always say, you let them know.
Let them know.